All right. It's a Monday on a Tuesday. And I'm wondering how many people are going to remember there is a live show tonight. Well, I guess we're going to find out. I guess we're going to find out how many people can remember. If not, you'll just have to catch it in the replay when it plays as a podcast. When I upload it, when it becomes available sometime tomorrow. This is the live show for July 7th of 2026. We're doing this on a Tuesday because last night I took the opportunity to watch the men's national team from the United States get their butts kicked by Belgium. I should have just done the live show last night. Isn't that usually how it just works out? And see, this is the reason some of you way back said, Ed, how could you put the live show on a Monday night? You're competing against Monday Night Football and whatever else. And it's like, I really don't feel like I'm missing much. And I should have had that attitude last night because it was disgraceful. But I am going to use that the loss last night to draw some connections between what has gone on over the last 30 years with soccer in the United States and with disappearances, as it states, and that's one of the topics. USMNT, if you don't know what that stands for United States Men's National Team, and the women would be USWNT. And disappearances, because I see some good comparisons, comparing and contrasting opportunities between both. Now, if you're not into soccer, I apologize, but you're going to get a little bit of a history lesson regarding soccer in the United States over really the last 30 years. Let's just say since the World Cup was last here in 1994. And let's just put it this way. Why has the United States failed? And I see the same reasons that it has failed over the last 30 years as to the reasons why, when it comes to investigating disappearances and understanding them, why we continue to fail in the United States as well. So that's what it means. USMNT and disappearances. That's what I mean. I'm going to get to that eventually tonight. Also, I'm going to take a look at an Ireland disappearance. I don't have much of an Ireland accent, truthfully. Can't fake it. But I'm going to take a look at the disappearance of Jo Jo Dullard, D-U-L-L-A-R-D. She was a young woman trying to get home after a night of out and maybe doing a little partying and everything. And she's calling people for a ride, and she never made it home. It's a well-known disappearance in Ireland, and it could be part of a larger crime spree that was going on at the time. And there is actually a Wikipedia page, multiple Wikipedia pages regarding JoJo's disappearance, and could all these disappearances and murders and whatever else be connected. And so I'm going to take a look at that tonight. And then also I want to take a look at this video, this story that happened here in Florida, although not near me, of a woman who ended up shooting a guy in a grocery store, Publix parking lot, all over a parking place. And there's video of what happened. And don't know if there's much to learn about disappearances regarding this, but I do want to talk about it. And if nothing else, to illustrate, this is how quickly something can go from nothing to everything very quickly. And so I'm going to get to that. So, and reason it's called Stand Your Ground is because we do have a law that is called that here in Florida about, people. There is no law requiring people to retreat if somebody threatens them or if they feel threatened. They have no duty to retreat. Some other states do. But here in Florida, stand your ground law means you can protect yourself in self-defense. You do not have to seek shelter or something first, and only as a last resort, defend yourself. You are allowed to defend wherever you are, in your house, in a parking lot, in a store. If you feel threatened, of course, you're going to have to go to court maybe anyway. But it's called Stand Your Ground Law, and I'm going to take a look at that video. While you are watching/listening tonight, there are a variety of things that you can do. You can give this show a thumbs up. Please do that. If you are maybe finding this YouTube channel, we have gotten some more subscribers the last couple weeks, maybe because of my appearance on Jeff Wise's channel, maybe because of my appearance on the Midnight Mystery Archive with Kevin. We talked about Regina Marie Boz's disappearance. Maybe it's because of that. And we're very close to 20,000 subscribers on this channel. It's amazing. So I appreciate all of that. So give this thumbs up, subscribe to this channel. If you're new, just hit the little button in the bottom right-hand corner. If you're watching on Facebook, thank you. You can support Unfound a variety of ways on paypal.me/Unfound podcast, patreon.com/Unfound podcast. If you are watching right now over there in the chat, you can hit the super chat button below and contribute to what we do here that way. And then also, if you're watching on YouTube tonight, you can hit the join button below and you'll get some things that other people do not. And you'll get some things early when other people have to wait. So a lot of things you can be doing tonight while you are partaking in whatever I have to say tonight. Now, let me pull my agenda up. As you know, I do not do this all off the top of my head. So I have this over on my other, if you're wondering about this, the computer that I'm using here is actually the one I use to make the podcast. It's my MacBook, and it's my second MacBook. The funny thing is I started the podcast out, I was using a Mac Mini, and that one kind of crapped out. I got another Mac Mini, that one crapped out. Got my first MacBook. The battery ended up going bad on it. And now I have this MacBook, which is not a new one. It's like a refurbished one. And it's been fine. But this is the one where I record everything on a program called GarageBand. And funny enough, it is a program that like real musical groups use to create music that you can hear on Spotify or whatever else. I use it for the podcast. And it's always been the case since going back to the first episode of Unfound. I've always used the program GarageBand on whatever Mac that I had. And then I have my notes that I put together over on my other computer, which is a Chromebook. And I have to tell you, I've decided I'm not a fan of the Chromebook laptops, and I can assure you I will not be buying one again. It's been fine. It hasn't broken down or anything, and the battery lasts and everything. It's just a little awkward. Even though I've had it for a while, and it's certainly the laptop that I use the most. it just is not very smooth to work on. It's the only way I can put it. The other thing I don't like about it is anytime you close it, you don't, I never actually technically shut these down. I just close the lid on them. With this MacBook, you close the lid and then you open up, and then it has a password that I have to put in to get into it. But it's like you just can't start working on it. It'll be all slow and it'll act like it was drinking all night or something. And so you have to restart it. Every time you want to use it, you have to restart it. That drives me nuts. To me, at least with my Dell that I actually still have over here, with the Dell, even to this day, you just open it up, type in the password, boom, you're gone. And with this MacBook, same thing. It's folded down, it's closed. I come, sit down, open it up, screen, comes alive, put in the password, you're ready to go. With this thing, you open it up, put it in the password, and it's all funky and everything. And the only way you can get it out of its funk is to restart it. Drives me nuts. And then also, being that it's a Chromebook, it doesn't have like a word processor program on it. So if you're doing that, you're actually working online, which slows things down and everything. The only thing I'll say is that the battery seems to last forever compared to this and that. So so what I'm telling you, if you're thinking about getting a Chromebook laptop, I would not. It doesn't crash or anything like that. It's just when I'm working on it, I just don't feel as efficient as I do on all of the other computers that I have. It's the best way I can put it. Even though I've been using it for a while, it's still, I will still, if this was just like a week into it, then you might say, well, Ed, you got to give it time. I think I've had this thing for like at least a year now, and it's still the same thing. I still don't feel smooth on it. I don't know. All right, who is in here? Dion is blood. Hopefully, Ed will address the strange comments he made last week regarding a gay bar in Pennsylvania. I have no idea what that means. I told the story as it was. Hello, D. What's going on, D? Hello, Amy. Hello, LaFord. LaFord, everybody. LaFord had a birthday this past weekend. Hello, Glenn from Michigan. What's going on? And Lisa, yeah, it is Tuesday. What's going on? And D says, second that one, Ed. You mean regarding Chromebook? Yeah, D. Yeah. So, all right. So what has gone on since we all got together the last time? Like I said, I'm gonna get to the soccer eventually within the confines of talking about soccer and disappearances. Trivia last Wednesday was muy bueno. To start the new season off, my team came in second, and we didn't even really have that great of a night. So very nice start to the next season. The final question is, of these four people of the 20th century, which one has the most memorials dedicated to him? And the choices were John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Teddy Roosevelt, or Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Of those four, which one has the most memorials devoted to him? And we got it right. We doubled our points. There were some teams who didn't get it right or didn't risk their points. So we ended up coming in second place. Very, very pleased with that. If you'd like to guess, you can write your answer in the chat. So it was all good. Of course, we'll do that again tomorrow. The season will go till the end of September. Did not do trivia on Saturday, of course, because that was the 4th of July. Did not do anything special for the 4th of July, which is not uncommon for me. You know, the thing about living out here at the beach is, of course, everybody comes out to the beach on the 4th of July. And then this year it was on a Saturday, which made things crazy. And it's one of those things that if you live at the beach and then you leave the beach to go do something for the 4th of July, good luck getting back to where you live. Good luck. And I was invited to go over, how would I put this? My brother's wife's, one of her daughters, she has 2 daughters. His wife, Lauren, has 2 daughters. And I was invited over to one of the daughters' homes for the 4th. But I told my brother, Brian, it's just too crazy. It's just too crazy. Too many cars, too many crazy stuff and everything. And they even had part of the causeway over by Clearwater blocked off because they were shooting the fireworks off so close to it that they didn't want anybody going over the causeway. Why would you shoot fireworks off so close to the causeway anyway? I don't know. But because of that, if that causeway over there going from Clearwater to Clearwater Beach is closed down, that just makes everything over here crazy because this is the other way to get to Clearwater Beach. It's just crazy. So I just stayed here. In fact, I didn't go anywhere this weekend. I went out on Friday afternoon, and then I didn't drive my car again until yesterday. So the car got a rest as well this weekend. I just chilled here. As some of you saw, if you follow me on my private Facebook page, took a video of all of the different 4th of July fireworks going off. Had to be 50 out there. It's crazy. I say that every time it happens, of course, 4th of July and New Year's, it's all the same. I can just see fireworks displays for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. And I'm only on the 8th floor. I was going to go up to the 20th floor, then didn't do it just to see what it's like watching from the top floor of this building. But crazy. So I took a video of that. Maybe some of you caught it. It was a beautiful night for fireworks. And in fact, you know, it's been weird that last Wednesday, my trivia teammates and myself were even talking about this. Some of my teammates really do not live that far away from me at all. And they were talking about how they've been getting this rain and everything. And I'm saying, man, it hasn't rained hardly at all out here at the beach this summer. It's weird. I mean, some of these people only live a couple miles from me. They've gotten a bunch of rain. I've hardly gotten anything. And so we've had some nice days out here at the beach. And Saturday night was a fantastic night to be out watching fireworks. And there are other people in this building, and they had their kids out watching on the balconies and everything. It was all pretty neat. Like I said, I didn't do anything special. I didn't cook anything special. I didn't eat anything special. But 250 years, I know we're a very young nation compared to many, many, many out there. You know, and if you're wondering how I feel about the United States and just to stay away from the political side of this, as you know, I stay away from all of that stuff. Not that I don't have my own ideas and everything, but for purposes of doing the podcast, for purposes of doing this live show, for purposes of being a little bit of a public figure, I don't talk about that stuff. I think the best way to gauge the United States, you know, if we're going to say, well, what is the number one thing? What is the biggest impact the creation of the United States of America has had on the rest of the world? What is the number one thing? And I think it's this. I mean, everybody, and I know my history. When it comes to trivia, I'm pretty good with history for being a lay person and everything. But here's, I think, the way you look at the United States after 250 years. When the Declaration of Independence was created on July 4th, 1776 in Philadelphia, almost the entire rest of the world. Now, I forget how many people were alive at that time. I don't even think there were 1 billion people on the earth yet. Of course, we have like 8 billion or whatever now. But back in 1776, almost all of the rest of the world was run by dictators, monarchies, heavy-handed rulers. There was hardly any leaders picked by the citizens of those countries. There was hardly any of that in 1776. 90-some% of the leaders of the civilizations of that time were there due to force or heredity, all of that stuff. Now in 2026, there are only 6 countries in the world where their leadership is decided by force or heredity. Almost all in 1776, only 6 now. So in the history of mankind, however far you want to go back until 1776, it was dictatorships, essentially. In the last 250 years, so how far you want to go back? 5,000 years? From 1776, 5,000 years? I don't know, 4,000 years? I don't know. In the first 4,000 to 5,000 years, we got to the point in 1776 where most countries were run by dictators. In the last 250 years, we now only have 6 of those types of civilizations left. I think that can not be blamed. I think you can thank the United States for that. Certainly not a perfect country. A lot of mistakes, continue to make mistakes. But I think that we have a lot less dictatorships and heavy-handed rulers and things like that because of the United States creation. I think that starting a country, even though I know women couldn't vote until the 20th century and only landowners could vote to start and all that, I get it. But it gave a symbol, I think, to the rest of the world that, yeah, this is the way countries should be run. Yeah, this way, not the way we've been doing it for the last 4,000, 5,000 years. Yeah, that does seem like a better idea. And we changed things in 250 years by us leading the way. That's the way I look at the United States. I think that's the number one impact the United States has had, being a citizen of it. To answer the question, my trivia question, which of the following 4 people of the 20th century has the most memorials dedicated to him? The multiple choice questions, the possible answers being JFK, Martin Luther King Jr., Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt. In fact, I knew this before the answers were even put on the screen. The answer is Martin Luther King is the answer. In fact, it's not even close, if you want to know. More memorials and monuments dedicated to Martin Luther King than any of those other men. But it should be known that Martin Luther King, if you want to compare it to anybody outside of the United States in the 21st century or in the 20th century, it's not close. So you got Stalin, you still got Lenin, and those guys, even though they were dictators, there's still a lot of that stuff still going around. But yeah, here in the United States, Martin Luther King has more monuments and memorials than anybody else of people who were alive in the 20th century. And I just, as soon as I saw it, I was like, it has to be Martin Luther King. Has to be. And I'm it's fantastic. Very happy for him. So yeah, LaFord, yes, D, I was thinking him or JFK. All right. And so what else is going on? Of course, the soccer. I'm just going to keep it to the sports side of it here for the moment. I had a really good time following the men's team. I watched the soccer today. I'll continue to watch the World Cup down to the final. I've enjoyed it. It's a different kind of watching experience compared to baseball or football because it's a continuous game. There's no pauses, hardly any pauses and everything. And, there's not a lot of scoring. And for most Americans, I think it's a very unique experience, although it does seem that a lot of Americans have tuned in, breaking TV records and everything. But even for me, and I've been following the men's team, I think I've seen most of their games since about 2014, I'm going to say. I've just kind of decided to get into it. Women's not as much, but I do watch them too. I want my country to do well, even though soccer is not our number one sport, not even close. Of course, the women have had a lot of success. Very happy for them. Men, not even close to as much. But I enjoyed it. And then, of course, last night, they really got their butts kicked. Really did. There is still a gap between, at least on the men's side, between what the American men can accomplish in contrast to, of course, with Argentina and Lionel Messi, or France, or England, or of course, Germany didn't do very well, but who else? Of course, Belgium is the team that beat the United States, and Spain, but even Italy didn't even make the World Cup. They've been having some soccer issues, but Morocco has a decent team now, Switzerland, Norway, and the United States just isn't on that level. I'm not saying that the United States would lose to every one of those teams if we played each of them 100 times. But I think, for example, if the United States played England, who isn't even number one in the world, if we were playing them 100 times, England would probably win 70 of them, at least, probably. And I'm going to get into that in a moment. But, they won their group. Some people were thinking they weren't even going to get out of their group. So winning their group was certainly something. But you also have to understand Paraguay, not the greatest soccer powerhouse in South America, although they had a really nice past year, I'd say. Australia, not really. Certainly an athletic country. Certainly they have spectacular athletes in Australia. A lot of great swimmers. Of course, they play Australian rules football. A lot of spectacular athletes in Australia. But soccer really isn't their thing either, although they're getting better. We lost to Turkey, but really weren't playing our number one players. Turkey's a pretty decent country, although we only lost to them 3-2. It wasn't a game that mattered anyway. And then we played Bosnia Herzegovina. Once again, small country, not a big population. We know the problems that area of the world had at one time with Yugoslavia breaking up and everything, going back like 30 some years. And, we beat them, shut them out. And then we came up against Belgium, who just kicked our butts in like what they call a friendly, kind of just an exhibition practice game a few months ago. They kicked our butt, and then even more so yesterday. And you have to keep in mind, Belgium is a country of 15 million people or something like that. Whatever. I think I was reading the state of South Carolina has more people than Belgium does. I think it's something like that. And so we have 300 some million people, and we lose to a country like that. And as I was doing my work today, as I was on the treadmill today, went to the gym, I was listening to a lot of American soccer people talking about, well, what's the problem and why aren't we better and everything. So this is where, hello, SSB, how are you? Good to see you. Good. Thank you for tuning in on this very, very rare Tuesday live show, although technically Tuesdays are where the live show originally started like 9 years ago. So this is the jumping off point for me talking about soccer to kind of get into this topic of the United States men's team and its failures over the past 30 years and disappearances. This may bore you to death, but it's my show, so I'm going to talk about it anyway, especially since disappearances aren't going away. And soccer is not going away in this country. I'm guessing a lot of you have kids who play it or have played it. And, maybe, it's 9-year-olds or 11-year-olds, and maybe they don't play it anymore, or maybe they're still playing it or whatever. It's certainly become more of a thing than when I was a kid in the 1980s. Of course, the United States, when it comes to the World Cup, they weren't in a World Cup between 1950 and 1990. Just could not get our act together regarding soccer. Or, of course, they call it football in the rest of the world. But in 1990, they went to the World Cup. And then 1994, the United States hosted the World Cup. And that was a big year. Team did okay. And there was the idea of, well, this is it. The United States did well in the World Cup hello, Marty. Everybody say hi to Marty. Marty makes it in on a Tuesday night, of course, late. Marty, I'm going to ask you a question if you can answer it. You don't need to give me a specific number. How much money do you, and I think you are married, you and your wife pay for your kids to play soccer? Because that's been a big talk over the last 24 hours since the United States men's team got their butt kicked in one of the problems. Right on time from my watch. Yeah, at least I'll let everybody say Marty. So here's the thing. Here's where I'm going with this, just to give you a little history. In 1994, the United States men's team had a decent showing at the World Cup. This was after decades of just not being able to get our act together. In 1994, they played pretty well, got to the round of 16 or something. They did things that nobody thought anybody everybody thought they were just going to crash out. They did way better than expected. And it was thought at the time, this is it. America is going to become a soccer powerhouse. Of course, we already do great in world athletics anyway with basketball. We know how well the United States does it, especially the Summer Olympics with track and field and like I said, basketball. And we at least at the time, we had tennis, going back to Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras, John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors, and some others. And then on the women's side, of course, we had a lot of fantastic tennis players, Chris Everett. And then into the 90s, of course, the Williams sisters came along. These world sports, golf, of course, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, all these guys into the 80s, into the 90s. Of course, Tiger comes along, Phil comes along, and yes, I'm aware of the problems Phil Mickelson has been having. So we should be able to do well at soccer too. We do all well in all these other sports, even at the Winter Olympics and everything. We're going to be like in the top 5 in soccer in no time. Well, here we are 30 some years later, and that is not even close to being achieved. All you had to do is watch the game last night. Now, I'm willing to say that, okay, they had a little bit, of a bad night and everything, but when the United States is played against traditional powerhouses in soccer in meaningful games, for the most part, the United States always gets its butt kicked. Even though we have a bigger population than any other country taking part in the World Cup, because China doesn't take part, India doesn't take part. Even though we have way more money, even though we have way more athletes, even though many countries around the world rely on the United States for their own sports, like with track and field and things, we still get our butts kicked by the soccer powerhouses of the world. We can kick Paraguay's butt and Bolivia's butt and Jamaica's butt and, and many other teams in like that. But it's Argentina, if it's Colombia, if it's Germany, if it's England, although we've tied England a few times, we get our butts kicked. Why is that? Despite 30 years. And it's hard to see any improvement. Even though you can look at the players and say, it does seem like we're technically better and faster and all of these things. Why is it that we've always in that, we're kind of like in that top 15 to top 20 range for the most part over the last 30 years, have not been able to crack that level. So what is the problem? What's the problem? And I see comparisons to Disappearances. Now, why is that? Because it's kind of the same thing. For decades, there have certainly been a lot of people who have put a lot of time and money into trying to solve disappearances. Yet it doesn't seem like that's gotten any better either. Even though we have gotten better at a lot of things. Of course, with DNA and video and social media and GPS and all of these things has certainly helped catch killers, catch burglars, catch robbers, catch rapists, and all of that. But when it comes to disappearances, we continue to do about the same. So what's the problem there? Well, what I would say, and I was listening to this today to go back to the soccer, one of the problems is you have to know what the problem is. And you listen to a lot of smart people today. Some of the greatest American players of all time, like Landon Donovan, Tim Howard, Clint Dempsey, and others, The problem is they have their own podcasts, they have their own shows, and I've listened to a lot of them. When they diagnose this problem, each one of them has a different idea about what the problem is. So if people who were professionals and have made millions of dollars playing the game, some of the best American players ever, can't agree on what the problem is and how to get better, then you can see how there's going to be a problem. That's the way I see it with disappearances as well. Although I have to admit, I don't know if there are many people commenting on the problems of solving disappearances as much as there are the people talking about what the soccer problems are in the United States. But here's a big one. Here's, I think, a very big similarity. And that is soccer means something in the rest of the world. You know, the United States kind of crapped out of the World Cup. Yeah, that sucks. But you know who else is crapped out of the World Cup and their fans aren't happy? Uruguay, Germany, Brazil. Brazil has won more World Cups than anybody. If you want to see a bunch of people who really take their soccer seriously, and when their teams lose, it's like everybody needs to die. I mean, I'm saying that facetiously, but it's like it's the it's like the end of the world for them. End of the world. Brazil, Germany, Uruguay. Of course, Italy too. Italy didn't make it to the World Cup. That is their sport. And I know Germany has maybe some other sports, hockey and some other things, but soccer, big time in Germany. They got beat by Paraguay. Should have never happened. It's like the end of the world in those countries. In the United States, yeah, it sucks. But overall, the American people were into it. A lot of people watching, a lot of people attended the games and everything. But overall, the American people, it doesn't hurt national pride if the soccer team, whether men's or women's, doesn't do well. And these other countries, they're, in fact, there was when the Colombia crapped out of the World Cup in 1994, one of their players actually was shot to death when he went back to Colombia because they lost. So how is that comparison to disappearances? I will tell you, as a person who does this for a living and has been doing it for almost 10 years now. When it comes to the people, the American people, when it comes to disappearances, they're kind of the same attitude towards soccer. Oh, there are 26,000 missing people in the United States, and I just checked that today on NamUs. 26,000. We realize that with disappearances, people don't take them seriously until they are personally affected. That's the way it goes. This is why, Ed, you should write a book about disappearances, what people do. So nobody's going to read that. Because nobody ever thinks it's going to happen to them. It's like cancer. I've given the... gave the example of cancer. People going about their business. Of course, there's breast cancer awareness and all these other cancers and everything else. People don't pay any attention to it until either they're affected or somebody they really care about is affected. Then they're like all in. Until that point, staying away. And that is a big reason that I think that we don't get any better at soccer, because there's no pressure to improve. And so with disappearances, kind of the same thing. There's no pressure for police departments to solve these disappearances because people have mainly forgotten about them. And guess what? The police forget about them too. For the public and for the police, it's all about right now. Solve whatever is happening today. For police, their job, keep their names out of the papers. And they do that by working as hard as they can on whatever happens today, not a disappearance that's 25 years old. So there's just not a lot of pressure for disappearances, at least here in the United States. There just isn't a lot of pressure if you fail in soccer in the United States. There's no pressure for police departments if they fail solving disappearances. Yes, there's pressure if there's a serial killer out there, the Zodiac Killer, Original Night Stalker, pressure. Yes, there's pressure in a unique case like Nancy Guthrie, somebody famous or connected to somebody famous goes missing. Otherwise, not a lot of pressure. Not a lot of pressure. The other comparison that I would make, and I've heard this for a while, once again, I have no personal experience in this. I've never played soccer. I don't have any kids. This is why I asked Marty in the chat about what you find out when you start listening to these people, mainly men, although there's a lot of great women commentators about soccer and women who have been on the women's team and have achieved a lot. And most of the podcasts and everything are men. And you show if there were more women talking about soccer podcasts, I'd listen to them too. But there's what you find out also when it comes to soccer, there's a lot of entrenchment in soccer. There are a lot of people who are making a lot of money on it. And I'm not saying they're underhanded. I'm not saying that they're taking the money and running. But their main concern is not developing players. Their main concern is winning. Now, those are two different things. And as a former athlete myself, being a baseball player, I can certainly understand this. But a lot of people, as I've been hearing, as I've been reading and listening to these mostly men who are tuned into this, we have a huge youth soccer problem in the United States. It's not the kids aren't playing. It's more popular than ever. It's what are they learning while they're there? And as I've heard, it's more just about the teams winning at not cheating, but winning at any cost. And I don't mean cheating or anything. What I mean is fundamentals are not important. They're going to play the game in a way that is going to win the game. And sometimes that at the level that which they're playing, that doesn't mean the fundamentals really matter. You have a lot of entrenched people. You even have private equity companies getting involved in youth soccer these days. So it's an investment. They're looking to get money out of it. I have nothing against money. I have nothing against the profit motive or anything like that. But that's not what they do anywhere else in the world. That's not what they do. That's not how they create great soccer athletes and great soccer teams anywhere else in the world. That we only do that here. Now, of course, they have youth programs. But what you find is those big, the very famous professional soccer teams like in the Premier League or La Liga or in Italy or whatever else, what do? They all finance those academies and everything themselves. Now, what happens, though, is if some player really comes along and is really special, they kind of own that player. Not in a slavery way, but that player is probably going to be indebted to them. And if that player wants to go somewhere else, that soccer team is going to get some money for that player and everything else. Granted, the player is going to make a lot of money, as most soccer players do around the world. But that is not what is done here. Now, they're trying to do that. Of course, we have MLS, and it's been around for 30 years, and it's fairly popular. The quality of the soccer, although I'm not sure it really doesn't compare to the Premier League in England or anything. But they're trying to do that, but they are up against a bunch of people who are doing it just for the money. And so the coaching is suspect. It's all about winning. It's all about trophies. It's all about fancy uniforms and everything. That is not the way they do it in the rest of the world. You have a lot of entrenched people who don't care, even though they're soccer people and they devote a lot of time to it. They don't care what the national soccer team does, men or women. They don't care. They don't care. This is also true in disappearances. We have a lot of entrenched people who are getting in the way in pushing the study, the investigation, the understanding of disappearances. Who are these people? Well, I'll start with this. A lot of true crime podcasters. There are a lot of people who cover these cases who don't care if they're solved or not. They need something to talk about, so that's what they do. Me, I would be certainly happy if all 26,000, whatever on name us, all of them were solved magically tonight. I would certainly find something else to do. I could certainly find something else to take up my time, use my IQ and everything to do something else. I can't say that confidently about a lot of other people in the true crime community. They need mysteries. They need things to talk about. They don't necessarily want things to get solved. Other entrenched people, private investigators, entrenched, don't know anything about disappearances, but dang it, they'll go on Fox News and CNN and everything else acting like they know everything about it. We have entrenched ideas within the disappearance community that, if we want to make progress, have to be ditched. Flyers don't work. Stop making them. Stop printing them. Don't work. Don't work. You want to find your stray cat or your missing cat or your missing dog, flyers work. You want to find a human, flyers don't work. Rewards don't work. We keep doing them. Waste of time. Gets too many people, all the kooks coming out of the woodwork. Psychics, palm readers, numerologists, tarot card readers. Doesn't work. Stop doing that. We have entrenched thinking among police departments that they are the only ones who can solve these things. Remember, they say, well, it's an ongoing investigation. We can't show you the file. That's crap. The state of Texas, every summer, lends out their murder files to college students to help them. Don't tell me you can't give out files. The reason they do that, why do they do that? They do that for publicity. They don't do that because they're actually looking to solve crimes. They're doing it so they can look good. Oh, look at us. But to people like myself, we want to talk about John Lorden, or, of course, a friend of the podcast, Heather Grotman, private people who are very knowledgeable regarding disappearances. Nope, you can't have it. Entrenched. That's entrenched, detrimental thinking. And it continues. We have all these unsolved missing persons cases. There are people out here in the private sector who certainly can help. We're not asking for $1 million a year. Don't want anything to do with it. So we have this entrenchment. You ask me why United States soccer, at least on the men's side, isn't improving. Entrenchment. A lot of people entrenched who are not making soccer in the United States better. We have a lot of people entrenched in disappearances, not making disappearance investigations and resolutions better. And to go back what I said before, you have to take something seriously. You have to take it seriously to get good at it. There have to be consequences when you fail. That's just the human. That's how we are as humans. It's very funny how we have double standards. When we fail, we don't want any consequences. When somebody else fails us, we want consequences. When the truth is, there should be consequences for failure. That doesn't mean you'd burn anybody at the stake, but you have to take something seriously to get good at it. There have to be consequences for when soccer people fail. There have to be consequences when disappearance people fail. There are no consequences. There has to be pride to avoid bad performances. Once again, those players, they're going to get off pretty easy compared to the players in Brazil, Germany, and the police and these people who don't resolve these disappearances. They get off pretty easily too. They all keep their jobs. They all get to keep their pensions. There can be no sacred cows. And when I see sacred cows, I mean people or ideas. Everything should always be on the table when things aren't improving. It's not the way it is in men's soccer. That's not the way it is with disappearances. Now, just to jump in here, well, what about women's soccer? What's the difference? Why are the women so good? Why have the women won World Cups? Why are they winning at the Olympics and the men can't? Well, first of all, you have to understand that it was actually, if Title IX had not happened in the United States, we would not be in this situation with women's athletics, where it says that when it comes to education and everything, equal, the money spent has to be equal between men and women. Now, because of that, I have to admit, there have been a lot of men's sports programs across the United States at the college level that have been deleted. But what it is allowed, of course, then you have to spend as much as the men's programs on women's programs. And soccer has been one of the benefits of that. We spend way more money. Of course, it's also because, frankly, women are just considered to be more equal in the United States than they are in many other countries. When you go to, of course, we know about certain states, countries, we know that women are second-class citizens. Can't vote, can't do this, can't do that, can't do this. And that gives the United States a huge advantage. But because of Title IX, when it comes to basketball and football, that kind of money has to be put into women's programs. Soccer with women has been a benefit of that starting in the 1990s, and it has continued to this day. But you should know, other countries are catching up. The American women don't win as much as they used to, and they don't win as easily as they used to, even though they're just as good. Why? Because the other countries are learning from us. And of course, they already have a culture of soccer. Oh, yeah, this soccer thing. Well, for, going back to the 1800s, it was just a men's game. Now the women are getting involved in these other countries. And they're looking at what we're doing over here at our women's hey, that's supposed to be our sport. And here the American women are kicking our women's butts. What do we got to do about it? So they're starting to add, use the men's template for their women. And so they're catching up. What's not happening is the men's soccer programs in the United States following what's going on in men's programs across the rest of the world. So it seems the rest of the world is smarter than we are on this. So if you're wondering about women, we got out to a big head start, but the rest of the world is catching up. When you look at countries like France and the women in Brazil and elsewhere, they're exponentially getting better. Of course, Japan women are very, very strong as well. And money doesn't fix these things. You know, that's what we've learned with soccer in the United States. Money does not make this better. And such with disappearances. What have I said for a long time now? Money doesn't solve disappearances, whether it's rewards or anything else. Throwing money at private investigators, throwing money at some of these, companies that lie about what they're doing. They're going in and saving kids and everything, throwing money at them, throwing money at flyers, throwing money at all these things doesn't work. Doesn't work. This is no different than trying to get fit by using some Instagram influencers. It's the same thing. For the soccer teams, all these people out there talking a lot about soccer, they're not making soccer better. A lot of cops out there are being interviewed about disappearances. They're not making disappearances any better. A lot of Instagram influencers talking about how to get fit. I really don't know how many of them are making anybody really more fit. In addition, when it comes the way I understand it, once again, I've never kicked a soccer ball. I'm not going to go that crazy, but I've never played in a soccer game. I don't have any kids or anything. But once again, the way I understand it from the people I respect within the sport, within the United States, and even some foreign people have talked about this regarding the United States, foreign players who are spectacular, who are now have come to the United States and see what's going on. I've also listened to them talk about this. They say the same thing. We have a lot of gatekeepers in soccer who would rather have U.S. soccer. I've mentioned this before. We have people who would rather have U.S. soccer fail than these people give up their positions that pay so much within the soccer community. You're never going to get good when that's the situation. Same way within the disappearance community. There's gatekeepers, starting with the police. Police, as I've shown myself, police would rather have disappearances go unsolved than ask for outside help from people who have proven to have knowledge on the topic. Sounds kind of the same, doesn't it? I know what they'll say. It's an ongoing investigation. They're redefining the word investigation. When I look up investigation in the dictionary, I'm going to find a definition. It's not the definition they're using. I would also say we just haven't too many talkers. And that's funny, given that I do recording and interview people for a living on disappearances, but I'll get to that. One of the other problems we have is that you have a lot of people complaining about what's going on in soccer in the United States. But what you also find out is not a lot of them are involved in the actual training of kids. Some of them are, many of them are, but not all of them. A lot of them are just talking heads. They're getting paid to talk about soccer. They're not getting paid to improve anything. So they'll complain on and on and on about how, the soccer template, the soccer structure in the United States is not working for this reason, but they're not involved in it. They just want to observe it from afar. Same way within the disappearance community. And like I said, am I one of those talkers? I am. But what have I done? As with the Q&A episode from a couple months ago, what do? I make predictions on disappearances, and then I tell you whether I get them wrong or not. And as I did in that episode, I gave you the list. I just don't talk about disappearances. I just don't interview disappearances. I put my reputation on the line by making predictions on the resolutions of them, and you should judge me accordingly. But I'm not so sure how many people in the disappearance community want to put their reputation out there like that. Likewise, within the soccer community, I'm not so sure how many people in the soccer community want to put their reputation out there like that, saying, well, if I can't do this, I deserve to. If we can't win a World Cup, I deserve to be fired. There's nobody doing that. Whereas that's how they handle soccer in other countries. I just, once again, since started listening last night after the game ended and talking about the problems, and then in today and so many different podcasts I listened to while I was putting the show together, and then on the treadmill in the gym today for like an hour and 45 minutes and everything, I was like, man, I just see so many comparisons of a bunch of people seemingly caring about a topic, caring about soccer, being mad that the United States isn't better at soccer, at least on the men's side. I know a lot of people are ticked off about disappearances and everything, but here we are all these years later, and it's still kind of the same thing. Why is that? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. At least on the soccer side, we've had 32 years to try to figure this out. We have the best facilities in the world. As so many people coming into the United States from all over the world for the World Cup, what are they discovering? Even though these aren't soccer stadiums, they're American football stadiums. They're finding out we have the best stadiums in the world, and they're not even built for soccer. You know, we have the best sports system, even though the NCAA is terribly crooked. But the amount of athletes in the world that have been created through the university system in the United States is mind-boggling. Even when you see these track and field athletes as examples who are from either Nigeria or Brazil or Cuba or wherever else, you find out, yeah, graduate of the University of Texas. You know, so they came here, got trained by Americans at American schools. They go back and represent their home countries in the Olympics. Happy for them. I'm happy we could give them something to be so good at. I'm not jealous of that at all. I'm happy that we could do that for them. Great. But haven't been able to do it in soccer. Haven't been able to get it done. And likewise with disappearances. We have NamUs. It's probably the only big database of missing people in the world. If Canada has one or England has one or something like that, I apologize. I'd love to see that, by the way. I'd love to see those. We have probably the biggest, most complex database of missing people in the world. But I'm not convinced that anybody who runs it really gives a dang whether any of those disappearances get solved at all. So that is what I wanted. That's what it meant today. The USMNT, once again, United States men's national team. I'm not including the women in this because they have been doing well. But, we'll see, somewhere down the road if these other countries continue to get better and as more girls want to play soccer and everything, my perception is that a lot of this is not quite entrenched in the women's game yet, mainly I think because of Title IX, but we'll see. We'll see. Now you maybe want, you might also hear this regarding soccer, is that it's like a rich person's game, once again, because of all the payments and everything. And there's an argument to be made that we're missing a lot of athletes who might be good soccer players because the way the structure is with all this paying and everything that has to be done, we're missing a lot of poor kids who can't play because their parents can't afford it, or single parents can't afford it, or whoever. Whereas you look at players from a lot of these other countries, they did not grow up in rich families. Like Lionel Messi, best soccer player to ever exist, came from nothing. The coach of the men's team, Mauricio Pochettino, who was a pretty good soccer player, played for the Argentina national team, played in World Cup. Of course, his results coaching the American team, not so good as of yesterday. But if he had grown up in the United States like he did in Argentina, he would have never played soccer. Would not have had an opportunity. So there are costs to this. And this just shows you one of those ways where, we get caught up in the United States in the market system, capitalism, and all of that. We just have to remember that capitalism should theoretically direct dollars to where they can be used as efficiently as possible. That's what capitalism is about, by the way. But that doesn't mean you're always going to get the outcomes that are competitive with other systems of doing things. So let me see what everybody is saying here. Glenn, because we have so many sports and the talent to spread out, if soccer was the main focus, we would dominate the world. Well, that's certainly an argument that has been made, Glenn, but not if the structure is the way it is. Not, once again, I've heard a lot of people talk about this. You have to really realize we have 300 million people. Belgium has 15 million. Even with so many different men and women playing all sorts of sports, we can't scrounge up 26 players to beat Belgium. I realize it's a very popular argument. I'm not saying it's just, I think it's just one reason of many. And I think even if we were to make everybody soccer players, there's still going to be a bunch of people who want to make a ton of money off this and start training as little kids and everything else. I just wonder. Whereas when we talk about basketball, even though I know there's traveling teams and everything else, and some people have stated, well, that's the reason that, you have a lot of NBA players who aren't even Americans who are now the best players. Some people blame it on traveling teams, pay to play, etc. Marty says, in the end, it's the end of the world for about an hour, right? Rockford, show me the top 10 athletes in any high school in Brazil, Spain, huh? Yeah, and I'll show you 10 soccer players. 2 top 10 in high school football, basketball, baseball players. But still, we have 300-some million people. We just lost to a country that has 15 million. A lot of athletes to go around in the United States. A lot of athletes to go around. I agree the fundamentals are lost. nowadays, even in Little League, saying capitalism is working in U.S. sports. What do consumers watch and spend money on consistently? Football, baseball. Thus, where the investment made on those sports? Well, soccer is, is big money too in the United States, but mainly because we have so many people. It doesn't rival those. Capitalism, though, is not creating great soccer players. Even though there is a system in place with paying money and everything, with people making a lot of money paid to do something that isn't getting it done. So what do consumers watch and spend money on consistently? Football, baseball, basketball, hockey. It could be Rockford, but I bet you probably saw the TV ratings just like I did. The ratings for the soccer game, just among American viewing audience, dwarfed any baseball game and any basketball game played. As I've stated, soccer in the United States is growing. There are more people playing. Like I said, when I was in the 80s, it was nothing. Nothing. But I as I stated, where I was going with that was, if the United States had won the World Cup, if that had gotten to the finals, beaten France and Argentina and England or whatever else, the money that would then suddenly go into all of this and everything, it might rival those sports in the United States. It may. And I also think, especially with football in the United States, as we continue to learn more and more about brain injuries and CTE, and we see famous athletes committing suicide and they have CTE and everything, and some of these famous football players developing Parkinson's and developing Lou Gehrig's disease, and ironically named after a baseball player, on and on. I see a day when American football is not going to be as popular as it is now. I realize they're trying to expand and, play games in Europe and all over the place. But I just wonder, if the injuries and things, there's going to be a tipping point regarding all of that, if we want to get into that discussion. So I see similarities. A lot of work being put in, not getting a lot out of it, money being thrown out of it, people entrenched, people who don't maybe have the total soccer community's best interest in mind. And that's why I wanted to talk about it and draw. I just see so many comparisons. Maybe it's just easier for me to see, given that this is the work I do every day. Hard for all of you to see. But I did my best to try to explain it tonight. And if you want to know, do I think the United States will ever become top 10 in the United States? I don't know. As we get better, other countries get better. The good part, though, is as information is more easily shared and everything, that's the reason that a Cape Verde can, there's a much more likelihood of upsets at the World Cup, although the World Cup only happens every 4 years. There's more likely to be upsets because information can be more easily transferred to people. You can learn a lot more and study a lot more if you're willing to do that. If that's how seriously you want to take the sport and do well at the national level against other countries. And, the fact is, Cape Verde, population 500,000, had more of an impressive World Cup than the United States did. They almost beat Argentina. They tied Spain, whereas the United States lost to Belgium 4-1. Problems. And I don't think they're, and I know what you're bringing up. I don't think they're athletic problems. I think it's structural problems. I do. I think that the players that we had out there yesterday are more than capable. And you should know some of them are very good players on their teams in England, Italy, and elsewhere. But bringing them together has not shown we don't do that very well. And on top of that, there is not one American player, as it is rated. Of course, people's rankings are, opinions. There's not one American player in the top 100 soccer players in the world. So there's that too. The structure isn't working. I think we got plenty of athletes. I know what you're saying. All the athletes go to all these things. We have more than enough people and more than enough athletes to be competitive. Certainly. So there you go. Let's move on to this. Just let me get some other things out of the way here. Unfound Now is out. Looked at the disappearance of Chang Cho in LA, used it as an example to talk about people with physical and mental handicaps and why they seem to disappear so easily, and the rest of us, wondering what happened to them. The next Your 2-Minute Disappearance lesson is out. It talked about how missing people lie. The next one, wanted to get it done today, didn't get it done, probably do it tomorrow, is going to be on factual versus logical. Atlantic series, two more episodes to go. I'll talk about that before we're done tonight. As far as what's going to be done after the series is over, probably going to take some weeks off, if you don't mind. Do some revisitations and such. We'll just have to see. And if you're wondering, would I consider doing another series? I would. I don't know if it would be a geographical series like this one has, but I have an idea. We'll just have to see if we can make it happen. I don't know how soon it could happen. Of course, I thought this was going to come out last year, and it didn't. So, and I also want to remind all of you, I'm going to be doing a map video for all these disappearances, at least the ones that got their own episodes for this Atlantic series. That's surely going to get done within the next week as well. It's going to be a little long, but I promise to put little chapters in there. If you want to just go, I usually don't do that, but I'll put little chapter markers in. So if you want to go to a specific one and watch that one instead of them kind of all just mushing together, I'll put little chapter markers in there to make it easier from now for you. 2 months from now, when soccer has been forgotten in the United States, you'll have thousands of people showing up for a meaningless Angels Royal game on a Tuesday. That's the U.S. sports fan base for you. I'll tell you what, Rockford, that actually got mentioned today in the podcast that I was listening to with Landon Donovan and Tim Howard. Because according to the schedule, the United States men there's what they call a window open for some friendlies, like exhibitions, to be done in August. They estimate that probably about 25,000 people will show up for a friendly. How many people show up for baseball exhibition games here in Florida for the Yankees or the Pirates or something like that? So that is their estimation. We'll see if they're right. Of course, it depends on who they're going to play, which is unknown at this time. Stand your ground. I need to talk about this given that don't pick on Royals fans wrong. Yeah. The parking lot video, if you have not seen it. It happened here in Florida, happened at a Publix, which is a grocery store chain, the most prominent grocery store chain here in Florida. That's where I shop. Not this particular store. I forget where this actually was. But what happened was a white guy, and I think there is I don't want to say there's a racial element to it, but I think that some people have tried to inject that into this. White guy, black woman. And something went on that they had a feud over a parking spot. They got into an argument, and the guy was approaching the woman. She went back to her car. She did not have her gun, my understanding. She did not have her gun on her. She was a legal owner of a firearm. She was not a prohibited possessor. She was allowed to have it, but she did not have it on her. Got into a dispute. He approached her. She goes back to her car, gets her gun, gets out of the car. You start seeing the video, and you can see it. Somebody's videoing it from, it's so hard to tell, 100 feet away, maybe. And the guy is standing there, and you can easily see the gun in her hand. There's like a van. It pulls out. He kind of steps away from the van. He can surely see the gun. He starts approaching her. She shoots him. He falls to the ground. He dies in the parking lot. I don't know if she called 911. Somebody called 911. Police show up. She did not flee. She stayed there. She gave her side of the story, and it seems that her story backs up what the video showed. Now, of course, the way it's been portrayed in the media, he's a military vet. He'd just been estranged from his daughter, this sad, sad tale of this vet getting shot in a parking lot. Frankly, he should have been shot. Here's my estimation. First of all, I'll state the obvious. Don't fight for people for parking places. Don't do that. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's stupid. Don't road rage. Don't whip the finger at people. If you're a legal gun owner, don't fly. If somebody cuts you off, don't hold up your gun to threaten them. Don't do that. That's illegal, by the way. That'll get you put in jail. It's called brandishing. Don't do that. It's not worth it. I realize we're all emotional. We got a lot of things going on in our heads, and the last thing we need is somebody cutting us off in traffic. Don't do that. So now that that's all out of the way, and as stupid as this argument was between these two people, this white guy and this black woman, she had every right to shoot him. Now, I will tell you, even though I haven't really, I've gone to a couple different articles on it where you can comment. I've seen Facebook pages that have posted, look at the comments. And it's not mentioned. Maybe I'm just seeing what I want to see. Are we sure this guy wasn't drunk? Or did he have like a problem with his hip or something? He really did seem to be stumbling around a little bit when he was approaching her. It seemed like he had a hard time walking in a straight line. And are we going to find out that he maybe had been drinking a little bit? Are we going to find out that he was on medication or something like that? She had no choice. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, she could have just gotten in her car and gone away. Yeah, I know. But that's not what happened. And she had every right, given that he was approaching her, to get into her car and get her gun out. She did not shoot him as he was walking away. I don't know how close he was, but, this is one of those things that, all the armchair quarterbacks and everything. As a gun owner myself, of course, the reason that we have guns and reason I, insist, as I've said on this podcast before, women, all of you should have guns, multiple guns. Why? Not because, and I realize there's STEM states out there, you can't do that, but don't do anything illegal. Because guns are a distance weapon. Women, as you know, the last thing you want is for a guy to get close to you, because for the most part, men are stronger than women. A gun allows you to protect yourself from a distance. I know someone, I'm just too carried guns. I'm just going to carry a knife. A knife is a close-in weapon. Don't do that. The guy's going to have to practice, be able to touch you for you to be able to use that knife. Too late. Don't do that. Say, well, I have pepper spray. Certainly better than nothing. And certainly there are instances, maybe even this one on this video, where it can be used. But once again, it has to be within a certain amount of feet, and you better get it just right. And if you don't use it right, guess what? You're going to get it in your eyes too. There can be problems with that. It's not perfect, although there may be occasions when you have to find something between a harsh word and shooting somebody. And that's where pepper spray, mace can be used. But even when it comes to guns, and if you watch enough videos, like, for example, on the Active Self-Protection channel, even when you have a gun, how quickly somebody can be up on you. That's why the general public gets all enraged. Cop shoots man with knife. Well, he was 20 feet away. He didn't do that. A person with a knife can be on you in a second at 20 feet away. So that's why they shoot them at that distance, because that, even though it's 20 feet away, it's all about time. It's not about distance. If that person wants to attack you, they can be on you in no time. So she should have shot him. He was approaching her. He saw her gun. He tried to approach her. He gave her no choice. No choice. And if you haven't seen it, I urge you to watch it for yourself. And I'm not sure what this. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised, even though there are many examples of this. I mean, you can see video after video after video of people approaching people who have guns. Whether it's the cops, somebody approaching them, stop, 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 don't listen. Or just between private people like this was. I just wonder if this guy was on something. Was he drunk? I would not be surprised if that is the truth. So I wanted to talk about that. We have the stand your ground law in Florida. And one more thing I would say about this, if you're ever in that situation, if you're just minding your own business and you're in some grocery store and somebody pulls a gun on somebody else and you're not involved, the rule is if somebody pulls a gun, you automatically have to believe that the person will use it. Person has a gun and everything. It's time to get out. Just think, don't try to convince yourself, oh, he won't shoot me, she won't shoot me, she won't shoot that other person. Person pulls a gun out, it's best to automatically think the person will use it on whoever. It's very sad what happened to this guy, but I just don't think he gave her much of a choice. And I think the police looked at it, let her go. I don't know if they kept her gun just for entering it into evidence. Or should it become something? I don't know. But she was allowed to drive home that day. And I don't even know how to do that. Even though I think she was justified in doing what she did, I don't know how I would feel. Even if I were justified, I come out, from a Publix and some, for some reason, something, and somebody wants to give me crap for whatever reason, and somebody's coming toward me. Now, me, once again, you can handle it a variety of ways. Me, if I got into a beef with this guy, I don't think I would have pulled my gun on him, but and maybe, then maybe I'm looking in, in another problem. I don't know. So stand your ground here in Florida. She had every right to stand there. He approached her. She could have easily believed he had his own gun. She could easily believe maybe he has a knife on him. She could easily believe that who knows, he might have somebody else coming, maybe as an accomplice or something like that. But like I said, if I got into this, I don't know how I would go home. Oh, yeah, I was just involved in shooting. I shot somebody. Yeah, I did in self-defense, but now I got to come back to my condo and just go on with the rest of my day. I think that would be a little difficult, even if it was justified. All right, let's talk about Jo Jo Dullard. This is her disappearance. This happened in Ireland. Let's see. Jo Jo Dullard, born 1975. When did this happen? 1995. So she was 21 years old. She's an Irish woman who disappeared at the age of 21 on November 9th, 1995. The last confirmed sighting of her was at a public telephone box or phone booth in Moore, County Kildare. And here's what happened. On the day of her disappearance, she traveled to Dublin by bus to sign off social welfare and to collect her final social welfare payment as she was begin a new job the next Monday. While in Dublin, she went to a pub to socialize with friends. Afterwards, Dullard traveled to, I don't know how you pronounce it, a bus station at 10 p.m. that night, but she missed her bus home to wherever she lived. She then decided to take the bus to Kildare and disembarked at Naas at 10:50 p.m. She successfully hitched a ride 20 kilometers, roughly 13 miles, to Kilcullen. At Kilcullen around 11:15 p.m., she hitched another ride to Moore, also a distance about 13 miles, and arrived there at about 11:35. So she's by herself. She's just getting a ride wherever she can. I guess she's hitchhiking. The person who dropped her off in Moore, and also the last a person confirmed to have seen her, was the son of then Fine Gael MEP for Leinster. Her name is Alan Gillis. So I think the last person, just to keep it in American terms, the last person who picked her up was the son of some local famous person, local politician, something like that. While in Moore, she used a phone booth at 11:37 to call her friend Mary Cullinan to see if JoJo was calling this woman to see if JoJo could stay with her that night, and explained how she had missed her bus. During the conversation, JoJo was stepping out of the telephone box whenever cars approached in an effort to flag them down. Now, how is this known? Is there a witness? Is this what she told the woman on the phone? I don't know. JoJo interrupted the call for a few seconds at 11:47 p.m. and then returned to the phone for the final time to say that she just got a lift. So it seemed she had gotten a ride before with a stranger. She had gotten another ride with a stranger. And I guess she was going to get another ride with this stranger. Didn't say the person's name, didn't give a description of the car. All she said was, just got a lift. She then ended the call. She was never seen or heard from again. So she's up by herself, traveling quite a ways, 13 miles. 13 miles. She's by herself. It's late at night. Now, we have to remember something. Ireland, a very safe country. Very, very safe. Even though we have the disappearance of Trevor Dealey and some others that are well known, fairly safe. However, at this time, 80s into the 90s, it seems they had something going on there with maybe a serial killer or something. But as you would imagine, there was a lot of stuff done to try to figure out what happened. A lot of allegations, lots of searches, lots of rumors. You can go to the Wikipedia and look up the vanishing triangle. Multiple women go missing or murdered in the 80s into the 90s. I really don't have time to go through all of them tonight. But we do have to view JoJo's disappearance in that light. Okay, and as you know, when I cover disappearances for Unfound, it come out every Friday, I do look as best as I can on NamesNewspapers.com to kind of get a feel for what was going on at that area at that time. Maybe a year before to a year after. Does it seem like this disappearance could be part of a larger spree? Does it seem? Does it not? I'll tell you, for the most part, I think that the disappearances that Unfound is featured for the most part are one-offs. I don't know. We might think Gerard Schaefer was involved in one of them, and of course, it might be a couple others, but overwhelmingly, disappearances, for the most part, covered on Unfound are one-offs, whether it's foul play or accident or whatever. But I think we do need to look at JoJo's disappearance in that light. I do not think that even if it is a one-off, this gets solved someday, I think we have to view it in the context of, well, there was something going on, even though we're not sure exactly what it is. Of course, we have the Gilgo killer, not featured any disappearances that seemingly were connected to him. Although some people have brought up the idea, is it possible that he was responsible for Jesse Foster's disappearance in Vegas because he used to go there? I think that's a stretch. But what is interesting, though, about these women, in contrast to the Gilgo killer, where all of those women were working girls, as best as I can tell, none of these women who went missing, who were murdered, were involved in any shady activity at all. I couldn't see anywhere where maybe one of them was, but news what people were doing in their spare time. But for the most part, it seems like they were just law-abiding young women. So this is also something needs to be figured into this. So In that way, it's not like the Go-Go Killer. But it should be noted, once again, and just generally, many of these women who went missing, who were murdered, and their murders weren't solved, it does seem many of them could have been killed by the men in their lives. However, I do not think that is with JoJo. Did she have a boyfriend or not? I'm not sure. But my thinking is whoever came along and whoever car she got into certainly was not a man in her life. She would have said so. Oh, yeah, Joe Smith is here to pick me up. Oh, my boyfriend is here. Instead, she just, I got a lift. That sounds like a stranger to me. So because of this, I'm not overtly convinced that they're all connected. Because you start looking at these and they start sounding like a lot of the man said disappearances. Now, you should know that there was a guy who is believed to be the perpetrator, and his name is out there. His name is Larry Murphy. And allegedly, after this disappearance, JoJo's disappearance, and another one, he went to Canada. And the reason this even caught my attention because there's renewed interest and there was news coming out in June of 2026. So last month, I don't think there's anything new necessarily, but it's back in the news. The police are allegedly taking another look at this. This caught my attention. And I said, oh, get to talk about another Irish disappearance, just like I looked at Trevor Deely's, I think, last year. My perception is that the Gardaí, which is like the national police force, I don't think they're quite like the FBI, but they've done a lot of talking, a lot of claims and accusations. And I don't know if I'm supposed to take any of it seriously. Of course, I will admit that my perception of the Gardaí is greatly influenced by Trevor Deely's disappearance, which I know a lot more about and still would love to feature on the podcast. I've attempted it a couple of times to contact his parents and a brother. I've been unsuccessful so far. But they've made a lot of accusations and claims and everything with Trevor's disappearance, and I'm not inclined to believe any of them. You know, that it was the mob killed him or what, his remains were over here. And I don't know. They sound very much like American police forces do, and they start talking about these things, making claims and accusations and innuendos and everything else. And you just think, I just don't know if I'm supposed to believe any of this. So here she is. She's trying to get home. She's talking to a friend of hers on the phone, trying to stay at her house so she doesn't maybe have to continue, however many more miles it is, of course, kilometers in Ireland to where she has to go. I'm not even sure about that. But then she says, oh, somebody's here and I'm going to get a ride. She's never seen again. So I guess we're supposed to believe that whoever picked her up is responsible for the disappearance, because it doesn't seem that that person has ever come forward, where it does seem that the people before who had given her rides did identify themselves. When they found that she was missing or saw her picture, these people came forward and said, oh, yeah, I gave her a ride that night. So if I were doing this, if I were talking to her family, of course, the disappearance over 30 years now, I'd really want to know, and of course, as you would imagine, this does seem like a murder. This does not seem like a walk-off. This does not seem like an accident. But what do I say? Missing people lie. So even though she said, hey, wait a minute, I got a ride, it might not be 100% true. Probably is, But I think it pays to always have that little bit of doubt in your head about it. Because we know how many disappearances Unfound featured where people called for rides, and when the rides showed up like 20 minutes later, these people weren't there. So I really want to know, to really analyze this, really get down to the square inch of accuracy on this. Has she ever done this before? You know, when I start hearing about somebody missing a ride, somebody missing a bus, somebody missing something, that I start wondering, well, is this common? You know, so in my head, what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure the odds. What are the odds that this is the first time she's ever missed a bus and she goes missing? Because then I have to start thinking, well, did she miss the bus on purpose to kind of set up her disappearance? That's the way my mind works. Rockford says there was an American woman. I think I saw that. Yeah, but I didn't really, like I said, I just kind of glossed over them. Just like looked at a paragraph. I think I knew that. Who disappeared in the Vanishing Triangle too. That one had a wild fact pattern. I'll have to check it. I had to stop in Garda office when I was driving on fumes and couldn't find an open gas station. They were amused but couldn't have been nicer about it. In Ireland, gas stations are not 24 hours. That doesn't surprise me. They were amused. It couldn't have been nicer. Irish people being friendly. Imagine that. Good thing you weren't in France, Rockford. It's still a little confusing to me why she couldn't just get a ride home. Was she out of money? Do they not have taxis? How far did she have to go? Was there not public transportation? I realized she missed the bus. She missed the last bus of the night. Maybe she did if they're all not open 24/7. Why all the changing of vehicles? This is, once again, my experience, 400 disappearances now. Don't have a fact pattern. Somebody hitchhiking for a while, then getting out, then getting another ride, and getting out. You know, and as we know here in the United States, our public transportation compared to the rest of the civilized world is not that advanced. Why wouldn't any of her friends help her? If she was out for friends, she couldn't get, one of them couldn't drive her home. I read some places, was she drunk? Is that true? I'd want to know, was she aware about everything that was going on with all these other missing and murdered women at the time? How aware was she of this? And you know, if she was aware of it, she was still continuing to get into cars with strangers. That I think that would be helpful in my analysis. Anybody else use that payphone that night? I couldn't check that now, but that might be something that's interesting. Where did Larry Murphy live in relation to the last call? Don't know that. He seems to be a popular guy in all of this. And as I have written her, we're sure she didn't call a guy in her life. Was the first, you know, being that she was talking to this friend to her about staying over at this friend's house, are we sure that she didn't make another call before that to somebody else? And because, once again, I'm not saying this is sexist, but that's what I think a woman would do. You know, just overall, you know, she keeps taking these rides with strangers. And maybe it's just my American mind, you know, because our country is a little different. Of course, nobody hitchhikes anymore. So the question's just about she had to rely on strangers, couldn't find somebody she knew to give her a lift. These are the things that stick out to me. So, when you look at something like this, as I've already discussed, you have to gauge walk off versus got picked up and murdered. And so you may be thinking, well, this sounds a lot like Maura Murray's. Of course, she was in a car wreck, but well, how do we know? Of course, a lot of people believe that Maura Murray was picked up. I do not. Here with JoJo, it seems like she said something to the effect of, yeah, I did get picked up. Yeah, I am getting in a car. Once again, disappearances are about people, not circumstances. JoJo and Maura, not the same. Maura had a reason to run. She was probably drinking and driving. Nobody knew she was up there in that area in New Hampshire. She lied about the death in the family and all these other things. JoJo did none of that. I can't find anything to say she lied about anything that was going on that night with her. So with Maura Murray, to then think that somebody picked her up seems unlikely. It seems much more likely she had every reason to run. Whereas it does seem more likely that JoJo got picked up. Why? Because we have proof that she had gotten picked up by other people that night, strangers. I note that lots of proclamations by police, but nothing, lots of accusations that haven't come true. So maybe we shouldn't be so convinced that this guy, Larry Murphy, did this. And my understanding in talking to an Irish, I can't say the person's name, but a listener in Ireland, is that maybe there's something else, that someone else who might have done this. And I don't know that person's name, but I think that foul play is likely in this. Of course, this will be a lot different if, as we experienced with some disappearances, where, boyfriend and girlfriend, or like we had the disappearance, I'm forgetting her name right now, but over there up in Marty's neck of the woods in New York, where, they go to the movies and they get in an argument in 1975 and the guy says she stormed off. We know what we think in that disappearance. Unfortunately, I can't think of the woman's name right at this second. This is not that either. Now, is it possible that JoJo thought she was going to get a ride and the person said, oh, you're going that direction, and so JoJo just decided, I'm going to walk it, and she got hit by a car? Or she really was drunk and went the wrong directions and fell into went into the woods and hit her head and died there? Yeah. I'm not so sure how likely that is. I think foul play is likely in this because she didn't have any mental issues and she didn't seemingly have any drug issues, even though she might have had, partying, we know how the, if I could say this, we know how the Irish like to party, right? So we still have to be open to that. And maybe that's why she was making some questionable decisions by getting in the cars with strangers, even though I realize that Ireland is a safe country, because she had a few in her, and maybe she wasn't making the best choices. Yeah, D, hello. You got to fall asleep. All right, D. Good night. And as I stated, there are reasons nobody hitchhikes in the United States anymore. So my analysis is that, yes, this is probably a murder, but I stress that wrong place, wrong time disappearances are rare. It seems that's what happened here. And of course, there's so many, mainly women, let's just say, who are out there by themselves, jogging, walking, riding their bike, and all these things that could be wrong place, wrong time. some predator drives by and says, oh, look, this woman's by herself. I'm going to spin around here and do something. Even so, rare. But there are enough people on this earth that rare, even if we say it's 1 in 100,000 odds, well, there are 8 billion people on the earth. And so 100,000 isn't that big of a number. You start, how many times does 100,000 go into 8 billion? Quite a few times. And when it comes 1 in 100,000, it ends up becoming that one ends up being a big number, even though it's still rare. The percentage of it happening is rare, but it does happen, just like Powerball odds. Your likelihood of hitting those numbers, 1 in 300 million. Yet we know people win eventually. So it's a murder, but I wouldn't so quickly jump on the Larry Murphy bandwagon. And like I said, my understanding is maybe there's somebody else who is a better candidate for this. But I'd certainly want to know more about wherever Larry Murphy lived, wherever this other suspect lived. I'd really want to know more on that. I'd really need to know more about their modus operandi and how did they go about picking their victims. Were all these other victims, if they could be proven, were they all just wrong place, wrong time? Did Larry Murphy or whoever else the suspect could be, did they know any of their victims beforehand? That would be helpful. And of course, it would be meaningful if JoJo actually knew Larry Murphy or knew this other person who I guess is considered a good suspect, whose name I don't know. Big thing also to remember is murders and disappearances can be clustered and not connected, just like I've shown in the Atlantic series. Those are all clusters of disappearances. I don't think any of them are connected, even if Diane Jenkins and Al Wharton were boyfriend and girlfriend at one time. I don't think any of them are connected, even though they're similar, even though they happened in the same decade, even though they happened in the same area. I don't think any of them are connected. So we just can't get so caught up in clusters. I think that's one thing that the Atlantic series has really shown. Speaking of that, to close out this night, this Friday, you're just going to hear from me, and I'm going to discuss all of these other disappearances where I could not reach anybody who knew the missing person or people. I just don't, me. I want to be it's just like the update episodes where, we cover so many because there are updates, and then there are all these other people that no updates and they don't get mentioned. And that's why I started putting the long list at the end, reading off all the names. So that's kind of what I'm going to do this Friday. All these other ones where I tried to reach people and couldn't reach them, I still want to talk about those disappearances. So I'm going to do that. There are quite a few. I'm going to try to do it quick, but it's probably going to have to be broken up into a couple of episodes. Of course, they'll, and however long it ends up being cut up or whatever, it'll all come out on Friday. So that's what episode 9 is going to be. It's going to be all the other disappearances where I just could not, I was unsuccessful in reaching anybody to talk to anybody. So that'll be episode 9. And you're going to see some similarities between these ones and the ones already featured. And you're going to hear some crazy stories. Crazy stories. I'm telling you right now. So that's it. All done for tonight. Before you go, please give this show a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel. Patreon, PayPal, missing person. Do you need help? Do you know somebody who needs help? Tell them to go to missingpersonsconsulting.com. And everybody keep your heads on swivels out there. Do not fight over parking places. Do not engage in road rage activity. Do not end up on my podcast. I don't know if Nephew Charlie was in here tonight or not. But I'm going to say good night to him and his kids. Anyway, thank you all for joining in this very rare Tuesday live show. I just should have done this last night, given how the United States men played. Should have just done it last night. I will make a note of that for next time. Good night.